Some deals are written in ink, but this one was written in desperation and a mother's dying breath. Rain slammed against the cracked window of Maya Johnson's one-room apartment, a rhythm that matched the panic in her chest. The hospital had called again that morning. Her mother's oxygen machine would be repossessed if she didn't make another payment by Friday. The scent of burnt coffee filled the air, and she stared at the overdue bills spread like landmines across her table. Her nursing shifts barely covered rent. Hope had become a luxury she couldn't afford. Money shouldn't decide who lives and who dies, but tonight it did. When the knock came at the door, Maya almost didn't answer. The man standing there wore a charcoal suit that cost more than her entire apartment's furniture. "Miss Johnson," he said smoothly, adjusting his silver tie pin. "I represent Mr. Damian Cole." The name carried weight. Everyone in Atlanta knew the billionaire who owned Cole Enterprises, the man who built skyscrapers while breaking reputations. Brooks handed her a sleek black envelope. Inside was a contract thick enough to choke her breath. Sometimes salvation wears the mask of sin. Maya read the first line and froze. Proposal for surrogacy agreement? Her hands trembled. The lawyer's tone was crisp, professional. "Mr. Cole is willing to compensate you $1 million for carrying his child." Her mind screamed no, but her mother's wheezing voice whispered yes. The room blurred. $1 million meant life. It meant breathing. It meant freedom. Every word on that paper was a lifeline wrapped in barbed wire. The lawyer slid a pen toward her, the gold tip gleaming like temptation. "If you agree, you'll undergo medical testing immediately. The procedure is discreet. You'll reside at Mr. Cole's estate for monitoring." His expression didn't flicker once. "You'll sign strict confidentiality terms. If you breach them, the contract is void." Maya's throat tightened. "Why me?" she whispered. Brooks paused. "You were recommended. Healthy, quiet, no attachments." She didn't know that the man buying her womb had already lost his heart once before. Later that night, Maya couldn't sleep. The city hummed outside, sirens, thunder, and broken dreams. She thought of her mother's smile before sickness drained it away. She thought of the word million and what it could buy: peace, security, a chance. But what would it cost her soul? The flicker of her bedside lamp made the shadows on her wall look like hands reaching for her. She didn't know if they were warning her or pulling her closer to fate. Fear is loud, but hunger for survival screams louder. By morning, she was sitting in the lobby of Cole Enterprises, her thrift store shoes squeaking against the marble floor. Everything gleamed: glass walls, chrome elevators, and fresh orchids that smelled like new beginnings. Employees whispered as she passed, their gazes curious. "Mr. Cole will see you now," the assistant said. Maya's pulse hammered. She stepped into the office and met the man whose name controlled half the city. He looked like control sculpted into human form. Damian Cole sat behind a mahogany desk, black suit pressed, eyes sharp and cold as the skyline behind him. His voice was low, measured. "Miss Johnson." It wasn't a greeting. It was an evaluation. Maya tried to speak, but his stare pinned her in place. "You read the terms?" She nodded. "And you understand that this is purely business, no emotion, no attachment." Each word was a knife cutting the air. But then his gaze softened just for a second, as if something about her face tugged at a memory he couldn't control. Every empire hides a ghost in its foundation, and his ghost wore a wedding ring. When Damian signed his name on the contract, his pen didn't shake. He'd done this before, signing away feelings, signing away pain. His late wife had died giving birth 2 years ago. Since then, he lived like a shadow with money. The surrogacy wasn't about legacy. It was about redemption. He wanted another chance to fix what fate had stolen. But as Maya's trembling hand reached for the same pen, he felt something stir, something he'd buried under gold and grief. Sometimes fate doesn't whisper, it screams in the silence between signatures. The pen slipped from her hands and clattered on the table. Their eyes met, his cool blue against her trembling brown. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the sound of rain and their uneven breathing. She could say no. She could walk away. But then she saw her mother's photo flashing across her phone screen, the reminder of unpaid bills lighting up the glass. With shaking fingers, she picked up the pen again. She didn't sign a contract. She signed a curse disguised as mercy. The moment her name hit the paper, Damian stood, extending a hand. His touch was brief, professional, firm, and electric. "Welcome aboard, Miss Johnson," he said, but something behind his calm tone cracked, almost like regret. The lawyer collected the contract, sealing it in a leather folder. "Medical screening starts tomorrow." And just like that, the deal was done. A human life exchanged for survival. The devil never looks like danger. He looks like everything you prayed for. That night, Maya sat by her mother's hospital bed holding her hand. "Mom," she whispered, forcing a smile, "everything is going to be okay now." Her eyes fluttered open. "What did you do, Maya?" The question hit like a wound. "Something that will save you," she murmured. Outside, lightning split the sky. Somewhere in the city, Damian stared at the signed contract on his desk, whispering to no one, "Maybe this time I'll get it right." Every beginning smells like hope, right before it starts to burn. As Maya stepped out of the hospital, the first cool drops of rain kissed her face. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Welcome to Cole Manor. Your new life begins tomorrow." The night swallowed her sigh. She didn't know that she had just entered a world where money could buy anything except a way out.
He looked at her like she was property, not a person, yet something in his stare felt dangerously alive. The black gates of Cole Manor opened with a quiet hiss, revealing a mansion that seemed to breathe power. The air smelled of rain-soaked pine and new money. Maya gripped her small suitcase as the driver pulled up to the entrance. The marble steps gleamed under soft lights, and inside, chandeliers hung like captured stars. Every detail screamed perfection, but perfection had a way of hiding pain. She whispered to herself, "It's just 9 months," as if saying it enough could make it true. Luxury can feel like a cage when it doesn't belong to you. A woman in a gray uniform approached, polite smile, distant eyes. "Welcome, Miss Johnson. I'm Mrs. Tate, the house manager. Mr. Cole is expecting you in his study." Maya followed through silent hallways where her footsteps echoed too loud. The walls were lined with oil paintings of people who looked powerful and cold, just like their owner. When they reached the heavy oak door, Mrs. Tate knocked softly. "Enter," came the voice, low, sharp, and commanding enough to slice through the air. Some people control empires, others control silence. Damian Cole didn't look up immediately. He was signing documents, the gold of his watch glinting under the lamp. When he finally raised his head, his eyes found her, and Maya's breath caught. They were a storm, dark gray with hints of blue, like thunder trapped behind glass. "Miss Johnson," he said, his voice smooth but detached. "I trust your accommodations meet the standards." She nodded quickly. "Yes, sir." He studied her face as if trying to read her soul. Then, with no change in expression, he said, "You'll begin medical supervision tomorrow. My doctor will brief you. Until then, rest." He spoke like feelings were beneath him, yet his silence screamed louder than words. Maya turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Miss Johnson," he said softly, "this arrangement doesn't give you access to my personal life. Stay within the East Wing. You'll be escorted anywhere else." The message was clear. She was part of a transaction, not his world. But something in his tone cracked, like he was setting boundaries to protect himself as much as her. "Yes, Mr. Cole," she replied, forcing composure. He nodded once, eyes unreadable, before turning back to his paperwork as if she was already fading into the background. Even marble hearts remember what warmth feels like. They just pretend to forget. Dinner was served in a dining room larger than her entire apartment. A long mahogany table stretched between them like a moat. She tried not to stare at him, but his presence filled the room. He ate in silence, neat, precise, mechanical. The air smelled of roasted herbs and tension. She wanted to say thank you for the meal, but the words felt too small, too fragile for this kind of distance. When the butler refilled her glass, Damian's gaze lifted, briefly meeting hers. It wasn't affection, but curiosity, almost confusion, like he couldn't understand why she wasn't afraid of him. It's easy to hate a man until you notice his loneliness bleeding through the cracks. Later that night, Maya wandered through the East Wing. The house was too quiet, like it was holding its breath. She found a grand piano near the window and pressed one key. The note echoed through the empty hall, haunting and beautiful. She sat, closing her eyes, letting her fingers find a melody she hadn't played in years. The sound drifted like smoke, soft, aching, human. Upstairs, Damian paused mid-call, listening. He hadn't heard music in this house since his wife died. His chest tightened. For the first time in years, he didn't hang up the phone. He just listened. Grief hides in the spaces where music dares to live. When the final note faded, Maya turned and froze. Damian stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, watching her. "I didn't mean to intrude," she said quickly, standing up. His expression was unreadable. "You play well." She nodded, unsure how to respond. "My mother taught me before she got sick." His gaze softened, barely noticeable, but it was there. "She's lucky to have you," he murmured, a voice that almost sounded human. Then, as if catching himself, he straightened. "Good night, Miss Johnson." His footsteps disappeared into the hall, leaving her heartbeat behind. The coldest people often remember warmth only when it's walking away. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains like spilled gold. Maya awoke to the sound of birds outside, strange in a house that felt so lifeless. She got dressed and met Dr. Lyle, Damian's private physician, for tests. Blood pressure, ultrasound prep, nutritional briefings, all mechanical, professional. But her thoughts drifted back to Damian's eyes last night. That fleeting softness, gone too fast to be real. Why did she care? This was business. Still, something inside her whispered, "You stepped into his grief, and now it sees you." Every secret house has one locked door, and she was getting too close to his.
That evening she saw him again, standing by the window, staring out at the rain. He looked untouchable, a man built from steel and guilt. "Mr. Cole," she said quietly, approaching. He didn't turn around. "You should call me Damian when we're alone," he said, his tone softer than before. "You're carrying my child after all." Her heart skipped. "Then you should call me Maya." The air shifted between them, heavy, electric. He finally looked at her, the faintest ghost of a smile in his eyes. "Fair enough." Before leaving, she hesitated. "You don't seem like a man who trusts easily," she said. His jaw tightened. "I don't." A pause. "Trust is dangerous." Then his voice dropped lower, almost a whisper, "and expensive." She should have left it there, but her heart spoke before her mind. Maybe not all things worth having should be bought. His eyes flashed, something between anger and longing. "Good night, Maya," he said, turning away. But she saw the truth before he did. His walls were built to keep love out, but they were already cracking. Some hearts thaw slowly, one look at a time. As Maya climbed the stairs that night, she heard a faint sound, a piano note, one single key pressed in the dark. Her lips parted. He was playing the same melody she played the night before, slightly off key, raw and human. She smiled through tears she didn't understand. Maybe, just maybe, the man with the coldest eyes was starting to feel again. The sound that was supposed to mean money instead whispered love. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled the private clinic as Maya lay on the reclined bed, her palms damp against the cold paper sheet. Machines hummed softly, and the faint rhythm of her nervous breathing echoed louder than any sound. Dr. Lyle adjusted the ultrasound wand, his calm professionalism a sharp contrast to the chaos in her chest. Damian stood by the window, arms folded, gaze fixed on the skyline, distant, unreachable, yet uncomfortably aware. This was supposed to be routine, but nothing about this moment felt ordinary. Life has a cruel way of making miracles arrive wrapped in fear. When the doctor turned the monitor toward them, Maya's pulse tripped. A small flicker blinked on the black and white screen. Fragile, steady, alive. "There," Dr. Lyle said gently. "That's the heartbeat." A sound filled the room. Lub-dub, lub-dub. Soft but powerful, like a secret knocking on their souls. Maya gasped, her throat tightening. The sound was everything she didn't expect. Warm, innocent, binding. She turned toward Damian, but he was frozen, every line of his face carved in disbelief. For a man who built empires, this heartbeat was the only thing he couldn't control. Damian's eyes locked on the screen as if it were pulling him backward in time. He remembered a hospital room filled with screams, the lifeless silence that followed, and the unbearable weight of a baby that never cried. Now, this new heartbeat, strong, steady, cut through years of buried grief. "Healthy," Dr. Lyle said with a smile. But Damian couldn't breathe. His throat ached with a memory he'd never spoken aloud. Maya saw it, the pain hiding behind power, and for the first time, she didn't see a billionaire. She saw a man. Some walls don't crumble with noise. They fall in silence. After the appointment, they stepped into the rainy parking lot. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and fresh beginnings. Damian walked ahead, his expression unreadable, his steps too quick.
Maya followed, her heart pounding harder than the storm. "You don't have to come to every appointment," she said softly. He stopped. "I do," he replied, voice low, almost shaking. Then, with a glance that felt like a confession, he added, "It's my responsibility." But what she heard was something closer to, "I can't lose this one too." Love doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides inside responsibility. That night, back at Cole Manor, the air was charged. The rain beat against the windows like restless fingers. Maya sat curled on the couch, sipping tea, trying to calm the whirlpool inside her. Damian appeared in the doorway, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, the look of a man exhausted by more than work. "You did well today," he said. The compliment caught him off guard. "Thank you," she murmured. Their eyes met for a heartbeat too long. Then he looked away, pouring himself a drink he didn't need. Sometimes comfort feels like temptation wearing a quiet smile. They talked, cautiously at first, about health, music, the books on the shelf. Each word chipped away at the distance between them. "You play beautifully," he said suddenly. "That song last night, it reminded me of someone I lost." Maya's chest tightened. "Your wife," she said softly. He nodded, the silence between them growing tender and painful all at once. "She died giving birth," he said flatly. I thought I could never hear another heartbeat again." His voice broke, raw and human. Maya wanted to reach out, but she didn't. Not yet. Two broken souls can recognize each other without a single word. Later that night, Maya lay awake in her new room. The mansion felt different now, less like a prison, more like a secret trying to heal. She could hear faint footsteps down the hall, Damian pacing, restless. She imagined his face when he heard the heartbeat, the flicker of fear and wonder that no money could hide. She pressed her hand to her belly. "Hello, little one. You don't know it yet, but you changed everything." The wind rustled outside as if agreeing. Down the hall, Damian stood at his late wife's portrait. Her painted smile stared back at him, haunting yet comforting. He whispered, "I heard it. It's alive." His reflection in the glass looked older, wearier, but for the first time in years, his eyes weren't empty. He thought of Maya, her calm strength, her soft defiance, her trembling hands that never begged. He didn't want to care. But the truth was already clawing its way in. He exhaled long and low. This wasn't supposed to feel like this. The heart doesn't ask for permission before it starts to care. The following morning, the world outside shimmered with post-storm sunlight. Maya stepped out onto the balcony, the air smelling of wet roses and renewal. She saw Damian below by the garden fountain, phone in hand, barking orders. Yet his eyes drifted upward, finding hers. Their gazes locked, accidental, electric. Time paused. Neither smiled, neither looked away, but something unspoken passed between them, a fragile truce, a promise they couldn't define. Every great storm leaves behind a strange kind of peace. That night, while the mansion slept, Maya dreamed of the heartbeat, louder this time, pulsing like a drum beneath her ribs. She woke with her hand over her belly, tears in her eyes. It wasn't just his child anymore, it was theirs. And somewhere down the hall, Damian lay awake too, staring at the ceiling,
realizing that no amount of rules, distance, or contracts could protect him from the sound that had broken his silence.
Some storms begin in the sky, others start in the heart. Thunder cracked above Cole Manor like a warning from the heavens, the kind that makes even marble tremble. The power rolled in fast, swallowing the city lights until only flashes of white lightning painted the walls. Power flickered, then vanished. The mansion fell into a velvet darkness, thick and humming with tension. Maya stood by her bedroom window, watching rain lash against the glass, each drop beating like her pulse. She told herself she wasn't afraid, but the truth was, she was terrified of more than the thunder. Darkness makes strangers out of people who were almost close. A knock at her door broke the silence. "Maya?" Damian's deep voice slid through the crack like heat through cold air. "The power's out. Stay where there's light." She opened the door and the glow from his flashlight cut across his sharp features, soaked shirt clinging to muscles, hair damp from running outside to check the generator. "You shouldn't be walking around. He hesitated, eyes flickering to her stomach. "You're carrying something precious." The way he said it wasn't business. It was something softer, something dangerous. "I'm fine," she said, crossing her arms. "It's just thunder, not the end of the world." But he didn't leave. "Still," he murmured, his voice a low rumble, "you shouldn't be alone." He placed a candle on her nightstand, its flame trembling like her breath. The room filled with the scent of smoke and rain, heavy, intimate, alive. For a long moment, they just stood there, two people trapped between duty and desire. Then lightning flashed again, painting them in silver. Maya whispered, "You don't have to protect me. It's always the lies we whisper to ourselves that hurt the most." He stepped closer, too close. "Maybe I'm not doing it for you," he said quietly, eyes locked on hers. "Maybe I'm trying to protect myself." His words stole her breath. The candlelight danced between them, flickering across his face, catching the sadness in his gaze. For the first time, she saw him not as the billionaire who bought her womb, but as the broken man who'd lost everything once. The air thickened. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown to something they both knew they shouldn't do. Desire is never louder than when it hides behind silence. "Damian?" she whispered, his name trembling off her tongue like a secret she wasn't ready to keep. His jaw tightened at the sound of it, her voice soft and unguarded, piercing through his armor. He took another step forward. "You should rest," he said, though his voice betrayed him. "I'll stay until the storm settles." She nodded, unable to look away. The thunder roared again, but all she could hear was the sound of his breathing, steady, deep, dangerously close. Somewhere between lightning and longing, restraint burns to ash. The next flash of light caught them standing inches apart. She could see every drop of rain sliding down his face, every flicker of pain hiding behind his strength. "You shouldn't look at me like that," he said, rough. "Like what?" she breathed. His answer came in a whisper that felt like confession. "Like I'm still human." And before she could speak, before reason could catch them both, his hand brushed her cheek, warm, calloused, trembling with hesitation. The world went still as his lips touched hers, soft at first, then deep, searching, desperate. It tasted like rain and surrender. Maya's hands found his chest, feeling the storm inside him. He pulled back slightly, eyes wild, breath uneven. This can't happen," he said, voice cracking. "We made an agreement." But as he spoke, his thumb traced her jaw like his body hadn't gotten the message. Her heart was a drum in her chest. "Then why does it feel like it already did?" she whispered. "The most dangerous moments are the ones that feel like peace." Damian stepped away, running a hand through his hair. "I can't. I promised myself." His tone was fractured, half apology, half plea. "You don't owe me anything," she said softly. "And I know," he replied, staring at the floor. "That's what terrifies me." The rain outside softened, but the storm between them didn't. Maya's fingers brushed her lips where his warmth still lingered. It wasn't just attraction, it was connection. And connection, she knew, always came with a cost. Even when the storm ends, the air still smells like danger. The lights flickered back to life. The hum of electricity filled the silence they left behind. Damian turned toward the door, his back rigid, his voice flat again. "Forget this happened." She didn't answer, because she couldn't, because she knew forgetting something that real was impossible. "Good night, Maya," he said, his voice breaking in ways money could never mend. When the door closed, she pressed her palm against her heart, whispering to the empty room, "But what if I can't?" Every forbidden thing begins with one excuse and ends with regret that feels like love. Down the hall, Damian leaned against his closed office door, eyes shut, fists tight. He could still taste her, still feel the pull he swore he'd never allow again. "She's carrying your child," he reminded himself. "This is business." But his heart, the one he buried with his wife, didn't listen. Somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered what he refused to admit. "You're already falling."
Every secret waits for the right silence to explode. The morning after the storm, Cole Manor looked calm, too calm. The sky was washed clean, the garden glittered with dew, and the world acted like nothing had happened, but Maya felt it in her bones. Something had shifted. Damian hadn't spoken to her since that kiss. The house was colder, quieter. He left early for meetings, avoiding her eyes, leaving only the ghost of his scent behind. She tried to focus on breathing, on pretending last night was a mistake, but her heart refused to obey. Peace never lasts long when guilt and truth live under the same roof. At noon, the silence shattered, the gate buzzed, and the housekeeper, Mrs. Green, came rushing into the living room, panic written all over her face. "Sir, she's here!" she cried. Damian appeared on the staircase, his expression hardening instantly. "Who?" he asked sharply. The answer came before Mrs. Green could speak, heels clicking on marble, perfume cutting through the air like memory. "Vanessa." Some ghosts wear red lipstick and know exactly where to aim. Vanessa Cole, Damian's ex-fiancée, walked in as if she still owned the place. Every step screamed confidence, every glance dripped with venom. "Hello, darling," she said smoothly, removing her sunglasses. "Miss me?" Damian's jaw tightened. "What are you doing here?" "Just visiting," she purred. "I heard you found a replacement." Her eyes flicked toward Maya, who stood frozen by the window. When jealousy meets pride, love becomes collateral damage. Vanessa's smirk deepened as she studied Maya's small belly. "Oh," she said, feigning innocence, "so this is her, the new Mrs. Cole, or is she just—" She paused, savoring the moment. "The contract?" The word hit like a slap. Maya's heart sank. Damian's eyes flashed. "That's enough," he said, voice low and warning. But Vanessa wasn't done. She leaned close to Maya, whispering loud enough for everyone to hear. "Tell me, sweetheart, how much did he pay you to carry his child?" Maya's lips parted, but no words came. Her throat burned. Her chest tightened. Damian stepped forward, fury radiating off him. "Get out," he ordered. Vanessa laughed, a sharp, poisonous sound. "Oh, Damian, you think you can hide this? The media's already buzzing. I leaked it this morning." He froze. "You what?" "Oh, don't look so shocked," she said, flipping her hair. "You really didn't think the world wouldn't find out you're having a surrogate baby with your maid, did you?" Some wounds bleed without drawing a single drop of blood. The room spun. Maya felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. The media?" she whispered. Damian turned to her, guilt flickering behind his anger. "Maya." But the sound of phones buzzing filled the room. Notifications, messages, alerts. Headlines flashed across the screen. "Billionaire Damian Cole's secret surrogate exposed. Mystery woman pregnant with Cole heir. Employee or lover?" Once a secret escapes, it never comes back whole. Maya ran to her room, slamming the door behind her. She fell to her knees, clutching her belly, sobbing so hard it hurt. "I just wanted a better life," she whispered. Outside the door, Damian stood frozen, fists clenched. He wanted to go in, to tell her the truth, that he never meant to fall for her, that he didn't leak the story, that he was already trying to shut it down. But guilt chained him in place. Regret is just love trapped inside the wrong moment. Hours later, the mansion was empty. Maya was gone. Her suitcase, the photo frame from the nightstand, the little charm bracelet she always wore, all missing. Damian tore through the rooms calling her name. Nothing. Only echoes. On the kitchen counter lay a single folded note, smudged with tears. It read, "I believed you were different. Maybe that was my mistake." When a heart leaves quietly, it leaves a hole nothing can fill. Damian sank into a chair, the paper trembling in his hand. Outside, cameras flashed at the gate, reporters shouting his name. The empire he built, the image he controlled, all slipping through his fingers, but none of that mattered. The only thing he wanted was already gone. When love collapses, silence becomes louder than any storm. The early morning mist clung to the air as Maya dragged her small suitcase through the iron gates of Cole Manor. Her breath fogged in the cold dawn, her tears blending with the drizzle that refused to stop. Behind her, the mansion, that glittering cage of luxury, loomed like a ghost. The security guard said nothing. They'd been ordered to let her leave. The whole world already knew her name. Maya Johnson, the surrogate who carried a billionaire's child. And though she hadn't done anything wrong, she felt like a criminal, escaping the scene of her own heartbreak. Some goodbyes aren't spoken. They're ripped out of your chest. Her phone buzzed nonstop, hundreds of missed calls, unknown numbers, tabloid reporters, and Damian's name flashing over and over. She couldn't answer. She wouldn't. Every vibration felt like a knife twisting deeper. She boarded the first bus out of Atlanta, clutching her stomach protectively. "Don't worry, baby," she whispered to the little life inside her. "Mommy's got you. We'll be okay." But the truth echoed differently inside her. She had no plan, no money, no home, and no idea how to outrun the shadow of Damian Cole. Even broken hearts still hope for miracles. Hours later, the bus pulled into a quiet town in South Carolina, small, sleepy, and kind of forgotten by the world. Maya stepped off, shivering in her oversized coat, feeling like a ghost among strangers. She found a cheap room above an old diner. The landlady, an elderly woman named Mrs. Hattie, handed her the keys without asking questions. "You look tired, child," she said softly. "Rest first. The world can wait." Maya smiled weakly. It was the first kind word she'd heard in days. Sometimes running away feels like the only way to breathe. At night, Maya stared at the cracked ceiling, her mind looping through every word Damian had said and every one he didn't. She replayed the kiss, the laughter, the promises he never made but somehow implied. "It wasn't supposed to be this way," she whispered. Her hand rested over her belly as the baby kicked softly, reminding her that not everything born from pain stays painful. Maybe this child was her chance to start over. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, regret was carving a man hollow. Damian sat in his office, tie undone, eyes red. His PR team argued in circles. Statements, damage control, spin, none of it mattered. "Shut it all down," he barked. "Every story, every leak, I want it gone." His assistant hesitated. "Sir, the media." "I don't care about the damn media," he shouted, slamming his fist on the desk. "Find her." Silence filled the room. For the first time in years, the billionaire who controlled everything had lost something money couldn't buy back. Guilt has a way of chasing faster than love ever could. He hired private investigators, traced her phone, even checked hospitals. Nothing. Maya had vanished. Every night, he sat in the nursery he'd built, the room filled with soft blue walls, a cradle carved by hand, and the faint smell of baby powder. "You are supposed to be safe in here," he whispered into the empty air. His reflection in the window looked like a stranger, tired, broken, and scared. Freedom feels different when the world is watching you run. Back in South Carolina, Maya tried to live quietly. She took a job at the diner below her room, serving coffee and pretending not to notice when people whispered. She avoided the internet, avoided mirrors, avoided hope. But sometimes, when she wiped the tables, she'd catch sight of her growing belly reflected in the glass and smile despite herself. The baby kicked again. "It's just you and me now," she said softly. "No more lies." But fate doesn't forget the people who are running from it. One evening, as rain tapped gently against the window, a black car pulled up outside the diner. Maya froze mid-step. Something about the way it idled, the tinted glass, the quiet engine, made her heart race. She turned away, pretending to clean. But when the door chimed open and she heard that deep, unmistakable voice, her hand trembled. Maya. Damian stood at the entrance, drenched from the rain, his expression a storm of relief and guilt. The diner went quiet. Forks paused, eyes turned. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Finding you," he said simply. "I had to." She turned away. "You shouldn't have." He stepped closer, but she took a step back. "You don't get to fix this. Not with words, not with money." Damian's voice broke. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I swear on everything I have, I didn't leak that story. Vanessa did it, and she's paying for it now. But Maya?" He paused, his eyes glassy. "I can't undo the pain I caused. I just want to make sure you're safe." She laughed bitterly. "Safe? Damian, I've been hiding in motels and washing dishes to survive while you're sitting in a mansion full of lawyers. You have no idea what it's like to be me." He swallowed hard. "Then let me learn. Let me try." She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the exhaustion in his eyes. For the first time, the billionaire who didn't look untouchable, he looked human, broken, lost. "You can't just show up and expect forgiveness," she said quietly. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he whispered. "I'm asking for a chance." Before Maya could respond, thunder cracked across the sky, lightning flashed, a violent electric burst, and the power went out. Darkness swallowed the diner. Then, as if on cue, a sharp pain tore through her stomach. "Maya?" Damian called out, alarmed. She gasped, clutching her belly. "Something's wrong," she whispered. "The baby." Damian caught her just as she collapsed. "Hold on, Maya," he said, his voice trembling. Rain poured outside as he carried her towards the car, shouting for help. The roads were flooded, the nearest hospital 20 minutes away. "Stay with me," he pleaded as she cried out in pain. Her vision blurred, his voice fading like an echo. The last thing she heard before everything went dark was his whisper, raw, desperate, human. "I love you."
Sometimes love is born in the same moment it almost dies. Rain slashed across the windshield like 1,000 knives as Damian sped through the flooded highway, Maya unconscious in the passenger seat. The wipers fought uselessly against the storm, each second louder, heavier, crueler. "Stay with me, Maya," he begged, one hand gripping the wheel, the other clutching hers. Her head lolled weakly, face pale, breath shallow. The baby wasn't due for another month, but life never waits for perfect timing. When fear takes the wheel, even billionaires forget how to breathe. Damian's heart hammered in his chest. The hospital was 20 miles away, and every road was blocked by fallen branches or abandoned cars. "Come on," he shouted at the storm, slamming the horn as if sound alone could push the world out of his way. Maya stirred, groaning in pain. "It hurts," she gasped. "It's too soon." I know," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Just hold on, please." The universe has a cruel sense of timing when love is on the line. A flash of lightning split the sky, and then the car engine sputtered and died. The headlights dimmed, the world went black. "No," he muttered, slamming the dashboard. He turned the key again. Nothing, only the rain's relentless pounding. He looked at Maya, her hands gripping her belly, eyes wide with terror. "Damian," she whispered, "the baby's coming." There are moments when life gives you no choice but to become brave. Damian's pulse roared in his ears. Okay, he said, fighting panic. He grabbed his coat, threw it over her trembling body, and stepped out into the storm. The cold hit him like a wall. He yanked the back door open, helped her slide down onto the seat. "Breathe, Maya," he said, kneeling beside her. "Just breathe for me." Her screams mixed with thunder, and for the first time in years, Damian Cole, the man who controlled everything, realized he could control nothing. When love meets chaos, hearts become the only steady rhythm. Her fingers dug into his arm. "I can't do this," she cried. "You can," he said fiercely. "You're the strongest woman I've ever met." She looked up at him, eyes wide with pain and fear. "You said you loved me," she whispered. "Was it true?" He froze, soaked, shaking, drenched in guilt and love. "Yes," he breathed. "I didn't know it until I was losing you. But yes, Maya, I love you more than anything." Some confessions are born in thunder, not words. Her sob turned into a scream as another contraction hit. "The baby, Damian, it's coming." He ripped off his jacket and laid it down, hands trembling but steady. "Okay, you're going to push when I tell you, all right?" She nodded weakly, clutching his hand so tight he thought his bones would crack. "Now, Maya, push!" Her scream tore through the storm. Time stretched, broke, and bled.
The line between life and death is thinner than a whisper. Minutes felt like hours. Damian wiped her forehead, whispering encouragement through gritted teeth. "You're almost there. Come on, baby, one more time." Maya screamed, pushed, and then silence. No cry, no sound, just the rain and the thunder and the echo of their fear. "Why isn't he crying?" Maya whispered weakly. "Oh God, Damian, why isn't he crying?" Damian's heart stopped. He lifted the tiny, fragile baby, limp, still, terrifyingly silent. "No, no, no," he whispered, rubbing his back, tapping its chest gently. "Come on, little one, breathe." Maya sobbed. "Please, Damian, do something." He tilted the baby's head, cleared its mouth, and pressed his lips to its tiny face. One breath, two, three, and then a cry that split the heavens open. The baby wailed, sharp and beautiful and alive. Damian's eyes filled with tears, his body shaking with relief. "He's okay," he whispered, voice breaking. "He's okay." He wrapped the baby in his jacket and handed it to Maya, who cradled him like he was made of light. "He's perfect," she breathed, tears mixing with rain. "You did it." Sometimes redemption doesn't come through forgiveness. It comes through saving what's left. Damian leaned back, exhausted, drenched, shaking. He looked at Maya, her hair plastered to her face, her skin glowing with new life, and felt something in his chest break open completely. "You're the strongest person I've ever known," he said. "You carried my child and somehow carried me too." She smiled weakly, whispering, "You saved us." But love always demands a price. Moments later, Maya's body went limp. Her eyes fluttered. "Maya," Damian said, panic returning. "Maya!" Her pulse was fading. He pressed his jacket tighter around her, shouting her name into the wind. "Stay with me! Please stay with me!" Her lips moved faintly. "Promise me he'll never feel unloved. Promise me, Damian." Tears streamed down his face. "I promise. I swear it." When the one you love slips away, promises become prayers. Sirens wailed in the distance, faint, far away, but real. Damian held her close, rocking her and the baby against his chest. "Don't leave me," he whispered again and again, as if the words could hold her soul in place. The rain began to ease, the world slowing down to a soft, eerie calm, and just when he thought she was gone forever, she stirred, barely, but enough. Her eyes opened, glassy, but alive. "You kept your word," she murmured. Love isn't measured by how long it lasts, but how deeply it saves. When the ambulance finally arrived, they found a billionaire kneeling in the mud, cradling a woman and child as if they were made of gold. His suit was ruined, his empire forgotten. All that mattered was the fragile heartbeat under his hand and the woman who refused to give up. That night, the man who once measured life in billions learned the true currency of love, loss, sacrifice, and a single breath that means everything.
Some debts can't be paid with money, only with a heart that's finally honest. The hospital room was quiet, except for the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, painting soft golden lines across Maya's face. She stirred weakly, her body sore, her mind foggy. For a terrifying second, she didn't know where she was. Then she heard it, the faint, delicate cry of a baby nearby, her baby. Her eyes flooded open fully, tears immediately welling up. "He's okay," she whispered, voice trembling. "He made it." The sound of life after almost losing it feels like forgiveness. The door creaked open, and Damian stepped in, holding the baby in his arms. His eyes were red-rimmed, his usually perfect hair a tangled mess. Gone was the polished billionaire. Standing before her was just a man, humbled and human. "Hey," he says softly, his voice barely more than a breath. "You scared me half to death." Maya smiled faintly. "Guess I wanted to make sure you really meant it when you said you loved me." Love, when it's real, survives even the parts that try to kill it. He walked closer, setting the baby gently in her arms. The moment she held him, everything else disappeared. The pain, the fear, the betrayal. Just her, the child, and the quiet miracle of survival. "He looks like you," Damian murmured, sitting beside her. Maya laughed softly, brushing the baby's tiny fingers. "That's your side," she whispered. "Mine just cries." Sometimes laughter is the only way love knows how to heal. For a long while they sat in silence, the baby sleeping peacefully between them. But beneath that quiet, words were waiting, heavy, necessary, overdue. Damian finally broke it. "Maya, I need to say something," he began, his tone steady but low. "When Vanessa exposed everything, I didn't fight hard enough for you. I let my pride talk louder than my heart. I told myself I was protecting you, but really I was protecting me." His eyes met hers, glistening. "And I'm sorry." The most powerful apology is the one that bleeds truth. Maya's chest ached. She wanted to stay angry, to remind him of every tear she had cried, but the sincerity in his voice disarmed her. "You hurt me," she said softly. "You made me feel like I was just a transaction." He nodded, tears falling freely. "I know, I was wrong. You weren't a transaction. You were the only real thing I've ever had. I'd give up everything, the company, the fortune, the name, if it meant I could start over with you. When love stops pretending, it starts redeeming." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Maya frowned, confused. "What's that?" He handed it to her gently. "The contract," he said, "the one that started all this." She hesitated, opening it slowly. Her eyes widened when she saw the ink smeared across the page, the edges torn, the clauses crossed out. "I tore it up," Damian said, "because I don't want a deal. I want a life with you." The best contracts are written without a single word. Maya's hand shook as she looked at him, then at their baby. "Damian," she whispered, "you don't have to do this." He smiled, that faint, crooked smile that once annoyed her and now melted her. "I'm not doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because I finally understand what it means to love without owning, to give without expecting." He took her hand and pressed it to his heart. "This is yours if you still want it." Sometimes the bravest thing love does is ask for another chance. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, unable to speak. Damian leaned in, brushing a kiss against her forehead, soft, trembling, real. "Welcome home," he whispered. She closed her eyes, whispering back, "Home isn't a mansion, Damian. It's this." She placed his hand on her baby's tiny chest. "It's us. When broken hearts choose each other again, the world finally feels right." Weeks passed. The tabloids moved on. Vanessa vanished into silence. Cole Industries quietly announced Damian's extended leave, and for the first time in his adult life, he didn't care. He spent his mornings making bottles, his afternoons walking the baby through the park, and his nights watching Maya fall asleep beside him. The man who once counted success in billions now measured it in heartbeats. The richest man is the one who learns the value of peace. One evening, as the sun set behind the city skyline, Damian stood on the balcony holding his son. Maya came up behind him, wrapping her arms around him. "He's so calm," she whispered. "Takes after you." Damian smiled, his eyes soft. "No," he said, "he takes after the woman who taught me how to love." They stood there in silence, bathed in orange light, as the city hummed below. Every love story deserves one quiet, golden ending. Maya looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. "You know," she said, "you once bought my womb." Damian turned, meeting her eyes. And? She smiled. "But somehow you ended up buying my heart."
And that was the real price of love. Not money, not promises, but the courage to start again after breaking.
Wow, what a story, right? He paid her to carry his baby, but in the end, he was the one who got carried away by love. Worldwide, tell me, do you think Maya made the right choice for giving Damian? Or should she have walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one of them. And hey, where are you watching from? I love seeing our community from all over the world come together through stories like this. If you enjoyed this story, The Price of Love, hit that like button right now. It really helps the story reach more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more billionaire love stories, heartbreaks, and emotional twists that'll leave you speechless. Because sometimes money can buy everything except love.